Good morning. My name is Dr. Michael Smith. I am a board certified psychiatrist with quite a few years of experience at this point, and I am joined today by my friend and colleague, Dr. Mark Johnston, also a board certified psychiatrist, also with a lot of years of experience. And Dr. Johnston has suggested a fun topic for our discussion today. And I'm just really looking forward to diving into a discussion on the role of humor in medicine and the role of humor in overall health. So, Dr. Johnston, why don't you begin? Tell me what some of your thoughts are on this, and we'll see where this goes.
Well, it's good to see you, Mike, and welcome to our listeners. Yes, I think we talked a little bit about this before we started today, that humor is more than entertainment. And I think as individuals that are interested in neurophysiology and the biological side of emotion, uh, it is interesting to realize that there's been quite a bit of research into the value of humor in our lives, how it reduces stress hormones, enhances immune function, can even improve vascular tone, strengthens social bonds. It really helps with resilience too. It's amazing how a little bit of humor can really improve our ability to withstand stressful circumstances, which we all have in our lives. And so I think I'd like to talk a little bit more about humor's role and also how do you actually get it in your life to have some of these benefits accrue to you.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm trying to think of a good joke to introduce this topic, but kind of drawing a blank at the moment. But I'm hoping that in this discussion, you'll talk not only about the subjective experience that we have. We all kind of know what a good laugh feels like and how that can be restorative and refreshing. Um, but I suspect there are things going on behind the scenes, some of the physiological things, hormonal things, and other things that might contribute to the therapeutic potential of humor. So,
Exactly. Well, I think what's interesting is we've focused maybe, and I think some of the public discourse on the effects of emotion on your physiology has focused more on the negative aspects. For example, how stress can change your cortisol levels, one of the stress hormones, how that
right.
can damage your physiology and decrease your quality of health and the experience of your life too. I think we haven't really understood as well until recent years and recent research just how much there are specifics that laughing out loud and really engaging with others in humor, a humorous interchange can improve our circumstance.
Yeah, I am eager to explore this a little bit further. Is there a role for introducing humor into the doctor-patient relationship somehow, or is that going to enhance things for doctors and patients, or more
Well,
specifically for
that's kind.
patients?
I was thinking of humor probably more in the broad sense of everyone's life, whether they're a patient or not, or whether they have a relationship with a physician. Just the day-to-day experience that we have. But to your question, I think humor can be positive in a therapeutic relationship too, but it also is a delicate matter because, for example, in psychotherapy or in areas of psychological therapies, one needs to be respectful and understanding of the communication, and that humor actually can both deflect or even suggest a lack of appreciation of the seriousness of an issue or pain that a person's going through. So I
Right.
think humor can play its role, but uh,
You're
but you
making
have
me
to be
think.
cautious.
If I can interrupt for a second, you're just making me think of situations you and I have both been in where you're going around on, you're on the surgical team or an internal medicine team, and you're seeing patients that have serious medical illnesses, maybe life-threatening or life-shortening illnesses. Um, and I can think of having been with other physicians who were very serious and somber and had no real connection with their patients. Um, and to me, I think that's a deficit. I think patients would appreciate a doctor who shows some humanity and some kindness. At the same time, I realize that if you try to be humorous at the wrong time, you can do exactly what you're suggesting, where you're not. You appear to be flippant about a very serious
Right.
matter. So I think the timing of your humor is critical. I personally think humor has a role. I think a friendly physician who can identify some of the humorous potential in life would be appreciated by me. But if they're being funny about a serious illness that I'm dealing with, then yeah, I'm not going to appreciate that very much.
Yeah.
So
I think you make an excellent point, and it's something that can be extended beyond the patient-physician relationship, and that is all of us, if we're trying to bring more humor into our lives, including in with our friends, with our family, and so on, we have to be understanding that there can be just a general fun of interacting, but if there are serious issues that are part of the communication, the timing and the way in which we bring humor into the relationship it needs to be thoughtful. And I think one thing that making a joke about a friend introduces some topic of concern to them, uh, and you come up with a humorous kind of without hearing them out as well or knowing the depth of the issue, you throw off a humorous anecdote or a reaction to it, that's going to tend to shut down the communication or even make it seem that you're not caring.
right. You're making me think of a concept that I think is important is this idea of getting beyond a self-focus, kind of transcending our own self-interest for a minute. And if I'm interacting with a patient or another person, and I think I can really amuse myself by telling something that's funny or trying to be comical, that may be okay, but my focus really ought to be on the other person. What's going to be most therapeutic to them? If I introduce a little bit of comic relief into something, is that to relieve me or is that to relieve my patient? So I
Yeah.
think the timing is important. And I think the focus of your comments, if my comments are focused mostly on making me feel better, I think as a physician, I need to reconsider that. If my timing is focused more on what I can do therapeutically for my patient, then I'm probably not going to go too far wrong.
You make some good points, and I think the doctor-patient relationship and the communication and the use of humor in that relationship ha- has a lot of similarities to other relationships. It obviously has its unique qualities, but it also uh, has the issue of trust, the issue of being heard, the issue of how much you're a good listener versus just you're waiting for your chance to score a clever remark or a humorous anecdote. I think that in similar ways, it's important to recognize what you can provide to friends with regard to humor. But let's talk a little bit about the selfish element. We know now that actual laughter, laughing out loud, reduces our cortisol, our stress hormone, and epinephrine, which is kind of also called adrenaline. When we're under stress, we get adrenaline, cortisol release, our heart rate can go up, our blood pressure. It's kind of a version of the fight or flight. It may not be a full blown fight or flight, but it's that kind of reaction in our system. And being charged up to run away from the tiger, so to speak, without any tiger there, without anything to obviously do to reduce the stress, can be damaging to the system. It's kind of like you're revving your engine and going up over the red line and so forth, or hanging out at the red line of. So I'm an automotive guy. You'll forgive the car analogy,
No, I
but
appreciate that.
but and you're not going anywhere. And actually, laughter has the opposite kind of effect. It reduces that sense of kind of high sphincter tone, ready to have to do something, and it kind of can be relaxing and help. It also improves something called the parasympathetic nervous system too. One thing that happens when you activate the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight, is that you divert blood and you make other physiological changes to the parasympathetic system, which is like your digestion and some of the more automated systems. The problem with that is that you start diverting blood from your digestive process and so forth. That's not good for your GI system for your health in other ways. So again, there are a variety of ways that humor has already been demonstrated to um, affect that. And then another thing mention quickly and give you a chance to weigh in. Uh, it's interesting when we're under stress, we feel pain more. All of us may have some elements of dealing with pain acutely, but there are a number of us that have arthritis or more chronic kind of conditions. And interestingly, stress can produce heightened awareness of pain and exacerbate the pain experience. One thing about humor is humor can really help diminish pain and diminish kind of the suffering of chronic pain. So people don't always talk about that. They say, well, here's a medicine for your pain, or distract yourself doing this from the pain. But humor actually can help reset some of the biochemical uh, messengers that are involved in the pain experience. And it helps social bonding and hormones like oxytocin that tend to bring us together and make us feel more part of a socially part of other people's lives and so forth. That is enhanced by humor. And as I already mentioned, it seems to really help with resilience. We all have stress, but when we have humor, somehow things get reprocessed cognitively and physiologically, where we just feel that stress less.
Let me just respond to that a little bit, Mark. I do think it's interesting, and the notes that you provided to me prior to this, I think underscore this. The social connectedness that comes with humor, I think, is maybe an underappreciated thing. But my experience, and I think it's validated by the information you've provided and by other research, when you have a group of people that can share a good laugh together, they feel more connected. It creates a little bit of cohesion within that group. You mentioned oxytocin. Oxytocin is a chemical that people hear about from time to time in their lives, but oxytocin does have a role to play in helping to um, strengthen that bond, that social bond that people feel. It's a big element between mothers and children in the whole birth process. For example, oxytocin is one of the chemicals that is released, and I think it's from a very mechanistic point of view, it's one of the things that helps to create a connection between mother and child. But I think also
Yes,
between two adults, it's important to have that feeling of social cohesion that you can get from a shared experience. So that's one thought I have. Another thought I had, this, I don't want to go off on a tangent too much because I do want to stick to what you had in mind. But I'm aware of a study that was done some time back using Botox or uh, botulism toxin, which, as you and I know, is a toxin it's used by plastic surgeons and others, dermatologists and others, to kind of weaken or diminish the wrinkles that we might have. It can paralyze muscles. And I'm aware of a study that was done. I'm aware of a study that was done with people where they injected Botox in a way where it made the muscles in their face that helped to generate a frown, those muscles were weakened. So the people were kind of stuck with a perpetual smile on their face.
Really?
I don't know what the Institutional Review Board had to say about all this because it sounds a
Getting
little
permission to do
unorthodox.
that sounds questionable.
Yeah, it does sound questionable. So I may be missing some details, but I think the point is valid that people who were stuck with at least a little bit of a smile on their face most of the day, there was some biologic feedback and psychologic feedback. If you did questionnaires like the Hamilton Depression Inventory or other things to assess how depressed a person is, these people experienced a significant antidepressant effect just because of that feedback that they had from their own appearance. That they were looking happy and they felt happier, even though they didn't have much control. They couldn't really force a frown very easily. So anyway, I think there's something to be said for doing things that will help us to maintain some bright affect, some
Yeah.
happiness in our demeanor. So I guess my question for you, Mark, is how do we properly dispense humor and how do we dose it? So where do you get it and how much?
That's a great
Maybe you can
question.
address to that.
I'm anxious to react a little bit to your excellent comments you just made, though. Just a couple things. One is we got a saying, "Smile and the world smiles with you." We don't have sayings like that for no reason. I think
Right.
it is true that if we were to, and this is not to be artificial or to give an appearance that is vastly different from what we're feeling inside, but being able to do our best to keep a happier style of interacting with others will pay benefits and so forth. It's also important to know we talked about the timing of humor, timing of smiling and acting bright. That can be generally a good response, but if you've got a situation where someone's trying to communicate something that is serious, that's a time to be aware and not be smiling through the description of something that may be a real hardship for the person. But let's get to your question here. How do you bring humor into your life? We tend to think of it as just, well, it just happens when it happens, kind of surprises you or whatever. But what's interesting is that there are purposeful things you can do to bring more humor into your life. One thing is what we call cognitive reframing, trying to look for the humor in a situation. I recently attended a, a performance or presentation by a comedian known as Brian Regan. In his area of humor, he doesn't uh, do kind of wild, inappropriate kinds of things. When I say inappropriate, I mean shock humor, particularly. What he does is it might be called situational humor. He looks for the oddness of the situation, the contradiction, the kind of paradoxical things that people find themselves involved with. And it's not so much making fun of any particular people, which is another style of humor that's common, but it's kind of situational. And I think he brings a lot of fun to daily life. I'm sure people that know him, who knows his stage presence is probably different than his presence with friends and colleagues and family. But my sense is he's always looking for humor, and that's one thing we can do in our own life, kind of looking for humor in situations. You can also, with this modern opportunity for electronic exposure, there are podcasts that are ones that bring humor into your life. There are books and other type of media that have humor and humor of the kind of style that you would like. It's good to build some of that into your life. Maybe have a break, where you're planning to watch a podcast or connect with some source of humor.
Can I
And
make a confession?
yeah,
You and I, and as well as other healthcare professionals, other doctors and others, we deal with a lot of serious stuff. And my own reaction to this is I remember dealing with hard things all day long in the course of my medical training and medical career, dealing with people that are very medically ill, about to die, or serious cancer, or in psychiatry we deal with all kinds of behavioral disturbances that are not really very funny. It's a really pretty serious dose of stuff that we would get during the course of our day. I found myself, when I would have an opportunity, I'd flip on the television or something and watch something fairly mindless that was funny, that was not at all serious. And I don't know if everybody does that or responds the same way, but to me, it was a way of kind of just decompressing from the weight of the stuff that we've been dealing with. So anyway, that was just a thought I had, that I do
yeah.
think that you have to find a way to kind of decompress. Humor is a good way to do that. Um, I don't know the dosing of that, or the frequency of it. I mean, those are things we think about as doctors, is the dose and the frequency. Um, I don't know.
Can I
What
make
are your
a
thoughts?
comment about that? I think a lot of us, whether we realize it or not, do those kind of things. We look for kind of some relief from the pain or the discomfort. One of the reasons I think that makes sense, it's not just kind of covering up or avoiding it for a minute or whatever with humor. But I think what happens is when we have challenging negative things that we deal with, there's a reality to that pain and that difficulty. But it also is at risk of resetting our perceptions of other things in our lives or the world in general in a negative way. In other words, is a risk of kind of giving you a cognitive reframing where you're focusing on negative things and how things may not work out and the pain of life. By giving a dose of humor, I think you tend to reset your system to appreciate to be in a more neutral state or to a state where you're not being overtaken by the negative experience, and it kind of frees you up from getting into that cycle. So I think that's one reason that humor breaks work. And again, like you did for yourself, I think people can find with media, especially, an opportunity for humor break. For me, there are certain friends. I have a variety of good friends, and contact with them is always beneficial, I think, emotionally. And but there are friends too that have a great sense of humor. One that kind of fits maybe with my own sense of humor, and I think contact with those folks in particular can be helpful. So reaching out and connecting with those family members or those folks that really always seem to bring a smile to your face can be a useful thing. And sometimes, we recognize that that's really a benefit to us, but we let time go by. We get busy, and it maybe is worth our penciling in on our schedule book, or at least being aware that, we need some time with these special people that really bring humor into our lives, and humor that sinks in deep.
That sounds good. Mark, we are just about out of time today. I think we haven't covered, but we've introduced an important topic. I think we could go on at some length about this. Maybe next time we approach this, we should both be armed with several jokes that we can see if we can make each other laugh with. But before we do that, or to wrap up today, how about giving several uh, points of admonition, things that you would prescribe to not just your patients, but to your family and friends and social acquaintances to
Sure.
help their lives be more satisfying.
A few nuggets here. Schedule intentional humor. Don't just wait for humor to find you. Go looking for it. You can reframe in terms of this business of cognitive reframing. That may sound a little technical or a little doctor like, but what I mean by that is just take a new look at a situation, and with the stressors that you have, reframe one stressor a day just with humor and so forth. Um, and again, reach out to those people that have a special connection with you that you do enjoy visiting with and who bring laughter to your life. I think those kind of basics can really help. And it doesn't have to be all the time. It doesn't have to be every other minute. We all have challenges. We have serious moments. We need to be serious in our lives. But I think reframing stressors, sharing moment of laughter with someone else, seeking out people that bring humor or bring out humor in us, and again, thinking of it as an intentional activity to find humor and bring it into your life. Those are all nuggets I think we can hold on to.
Yeah, I like those ideas a lot. The only thing I might add or think about is if it seems like it's been a while since you've had a good laugh, I think you need to do something about that. Um, I've mentioned dosing and frequency a couple of times, and I think those are going to be individual things. But if it's been a while since you've had a good laugh, find a way to get a good, appropriate laugh, and I think life will be better.
Absolutely.
Mark, we always have some fun stuff to talk about. I look forward to it each week, and thank you for sharing your thoughts. Any final thoughts before we sign off?
No, I think I've run out of thoughts.
That could be serious, but I'm pretty sure you have not run out of thoughts. But anyway, I look forward to continuing our conversation next time.
Sounds
And for
good.
now, signing off. Thank
All
you.
right. We'll see you next time.